Hey everyone, and welcome once again to Project Pixar. We are tackling our 5th Pixar film today, and I hope you brought your scuba gear, because it's going to get wet, might get a little fishy. Who we are swimming down to the down under is Finding Nemo. Noah, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm great. I'm under the sea.
Dun, da, da, da,
Under the sea.
da, 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 da. I mean, it's Disney and it's water, but it's definitely the wrong film.
But yeah.
Yeah, you got the idea. Maybe that'll be your favorite musical moment. All right, so let's jump into it. So I'll start us off, if you don't mind, with who is our favorite character. Like, for me, one of my favorite protagonists, like, it has to be Marlin. This guy busts his ass. He works. I mean, he braves the whole ocean. He fights everything. He will stop at nothing to find his son, and I cannot praise Albert Brooks enough for the voice acting job. There is a sense of desperation to this character that he vocally adds, and this character just sounds so stressed all the time. And you know, I've watched this film so many times now. You can see the art, because at the beginning he's very carefree and he's open, and then this terrible tragedy happens and he just totally shuts up, and he totally just, like, you know, closes off. And there's little moments in the film, like when they're racing on the jellyfish, where you can tell he, like, lets go a little bit and he opens up into the old Marlin, and he just has this feeling he's just trying to control his world so badly. Like, I was just blown away when I saw this little clownfish, and I was rooting for him like nobody's business. Like, I'm not a father myself, but man, like, I was just like, this guy sold it for me, and just incredible. And there's so many great characters in this film. This film is maybe one of the best casts of all Pixar films, and that's really huge. But man, Marlin is the journey. Marlin is what holds it all together. Like, cannot praise him enough. And what's interesting is that you know, the three parts of being a human is that your mental state, your emotional state, and your physical state, and all three of the main characters have a deficiency in each. You know, Marlin has an emotional hang-up, Nemo has a physical hang-up, and then Dory has the mental hang-up. So great storytelling. Just, man, I can't praise Marlin enough. What about yourself?
I think I would have to go with Dory. Strong enough character to lead her own film later on. So the character has a really great introduction right off the bat. Like, I just giggle thinking about her, like, peering behind her, like, what are you doing, following me? And then, like, what are you gonna do, tough guy?
Yeah.
Do you? Yeah, like, just right in his face. If a lesser director or a lesser company would make her a complete one-note character, but she is way more than that. She has this kind of this deeper understanding because of her disability. She has to just go with the flow and take life as it comes, which, you know, of course teaches Marlin, you know, not to be so hung up on everything and just keep swimming. Literally. Yeah, she's got just some really hilarious moments. I love just how enthusiastic she is to meet anybody, like, in the ocean, like, just any character she comes across. She's very kind and straightforward to them, and yeah, and then just her emotional moments are heartbreaking too, because as much as she puts a smile on this fact that you know, of her life, she's still got this disability, and it hurts her. It's something that she has to deal with, and when she lets out how she really feels, it can be, you know, really devastating and touching. So yeah, go Dory.
Totally revamped Ellen DeGeneres' career too. Like,
Oh,
she
yeah,
got
for
such
sure.
praise, justifiably so, because she was fantastic in that role. Yeah, great choice. So, okay, what about your least favorite moment in Finding Nemo? Do you have one? This is gonna be tough for me.
I do.
What
No,
you got?
I do. For me, some of the dentist office stuff can be repetitive, or just kind of, it's not as interesting as what's going on with Dory and Marlin. So it's it's there for a reason. It's important because you do have to what's going on with Nemo and I really like the Gil character as well.
Yeah.
His arc's really good. He I was considering him for favorite character for a bit there
Yeah.
too. But yeah, I would just say yeah, some of the Denisine stuff. It's just not as strong material as what Marlon and Dory are doing. So I'd say that.
That's fair. This I don't really have one. Like, there's no standout moment. Again, maybe I would be just nitpicking it to death. Oh, this one line here could have been plucked out, or this one thing there could have been plucked out. Like, to me, this has such good pacing. It's like it's just one of those ones. Like, there isn't a standout moment for me that I was like, oh, that's just yeah. I just think the whole thing's great.
That's fair.
Yeah. So next up, we've got standout animation. I'll go ahead and go first if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
The one that, I mean, gosh, this film's so pretty. The one that always sticks out to me, though, is there is this shot where it's near the beginning where Nemo is going to school on the back of Mr. Ray, and he looks over the side of him, and it's this panning shot of just this gorgeous underwater coral reef seascape. And I remember, like, there's this, like, pink kind of, like, it looks like a big flappy like piece of paper, you know, it's some kind of like sea slug or something, is like what it eventually lands on, and it's just beautiful. Every time I see it, I'm just like, good gravy, this film is pretty. Like that is the one that always sticks out among any shot you could pick that you're like, it's all gorgeous. Yeah, that's the one that I'll never forget. The first time I saw it, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the whole movie, or the entirety of the movie takes place in water, so I think it would have to be the water effects for me, both in underneath the water and on the surface. Mm-hmm. There's a kind of like I don't know if it's memeable or anything like that, but there used to be with video games a really high, like a high standard benchmark for your graphics was how does the water look,
yeah.
You know? so if you know, if this movie was being judged on that, like, it would have blow your mind because the water looks so realistic and good, you know. And then just like underwater, sometimes you have to know how to animate that appropriately because there's so many like really small particles and things and bubbles and things like that that make the effect that you're underwater. You don't even think about it. You just accept that they're underwater, and yeah, I just always appreciate that, like that kind of artistry, because I wouldn't know where to start. Mm-hmm. Like I could draw like one little bubble here or there. Okay, they're underwater, but it's so much more to that.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. All right, what do we got next?
What do you remember about Finding Nemo when you first saw it?
So this came out in 2003. And I actually went and saw it at the movie theater with my brother. And I never really saw a whole lot of films in theater with my brother. So, like, I particularly remember that. And it just, again, it was a great time. It was the same theater I saw Monsters, Inc. in. And I'll never forget the scene, too, when they go down into the abyss and the whole screen blacks out. And I'm just sitting in this theater and I'm just hearing these fish voices coming in from the different theater speakers. And again, it just meant a lot to go see it with my brother. And I remember how much he liked it, too. You know, and at the time, you know, maybe he wasn't into, like, animated films as much. So for him to be like, that was really good, like... Yeah, it really stood out to me. And it was funny. This was the movie that solidified Pixar for me. And thinking back on it, I think it also has to do with, from an age standpoint, I would start to drive a car shortly after this. So from this point on, I could kind of start taking myself to these films. Whereas before then, again, I kind of always had to be taken by somebody else. But I remember after this film, it was like, okay, I have to always go see the new Pixar film in theaters. I have to. Like, this was when the brand 100% was like, all right, this is it. This is what I'm going to go do.
Not just in your mind. I think this was the one also that it was like, okay, Pixar is a force. Like, it's not just cutesy in here, it's here and it's part of Disney. Like, no, Pixar is a force. Mm-hmm. Like, it has... it came out during the summer of 2003. I remember people, thought, it's going to do well. It's a Pixar movie. And it just was a juggernaut throughout the summer. It stayed in theaters for months, for the entire summer. And stayed, I think, number one for a long time. Like, it may have the record for that, or Shrek 2 has the record for longest time at number one for an animated film, I think. But would be surprised if it was Finding Nemo. I did see it in theaters, and it's just, I mean, it's a crowd pleaser. You know, I mean, Marlin's kind of an underdog, so it's kind of like an underdog story in a way, but it's just, for the lack of a better term, it's so easy to root for your heroes, and it's just a wholesome family entertainment that everyone can enjoy.
Yep, that's fair. So, is there a musical moment in this movie that stands out to you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a great score. Particularly at the very beginning with the title crawl, it's a very lovely, it's touching score. I love that part is great. The also shout out to, like, there's a moment at the end, and I don't know if it's repeated. I think it might be, but particularly like when fish are caught in the net at the end and they have to swim, and there's like this boom,
Yeah, the bells. Yeah,
boom,
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 boom.
boom, 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 boom,
Yeah,
boom, boom. It's simple, but it really evokes that kind of terror and
yeah.
panic
Dread.
and dread that those characters are facing at the time. So, but overall, it's a lovely score. It really is.
Yeah, Thomas Newman knocks out of the park. A similar moment to that when Nemo first gets captured and Marlin is chasing after it, and you hear these boom, boom, and it's a first person view of the water, of you just see the water of the boat's wake, and it just makes you realize like how big the ocean is. Like, oh my God, he's never gonna see his kid again. But it's the main theme. It's that and it's when Nigel the pelican is telling Nemo that like your father's coming to see you, and he's telling him all these things he's braved, and like they show Nemo's face, and you get that, and you see Nemo realizing, oh my God, my dad would do anything for me, and it's what gives Nemo the courage to then change the filter. Like, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
There's a lot of really good jokes in the movie, and a lot of really great lines, very heartfelt and poignant. So I'm just gonna say, like, I love the moment, at the beginning. Terrible tragedy what happens with with Marlin's wife and his kids, and
yeah, Coral,
and he just goes back, and Coral, and he just goes back and he finds that lone egg and just cradles up to it and says, "Daddy's not gonna let anything happen to you, Nemo." And then, like, the title crawl, and I get teary just thinking about it, especially now being a father. Like, it hits you, like, it's a really touching moment. Also, another one that is great is Dory, when Marlin's gonna kind of leave behind and do his own thing, and she's like, please, don't leave me. I just know that, I see you, I'm with you, and I remember things, and I see you, and I'm home. And the way that Ellen DeGeneres, like, pulls that out is just so...
Her voice, like, cracks, and I'm home.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, that's one of them. So there's so many, I can't even, like, pick a favorite, so I'll just mention some. That one is one I was going to mention. She falls out, please, I don't want to lose that feeling. And Marlin's response is hard. He says, I'm sorry, Dory, but I do. And because he's just so defeated, because he thinks Nemo's dead. He thought he saw him get, going belly up or whatever. Like, Gil's introduction is so simple, where he just says, nobody touch him. Nobody touch him. And that great, like, Willem Dafoe kind of gravel to his voice, like, Bruce the shark, literally just him saying, hello, like the way he says hello, and that really deep, and there's this massive shark, and you're like, oh my goodness. Marlin, I always love when a character kind of has that Freudian slip. So when they're falling in the whale, and he's like, you can't speak whale, you keep thinking you can do these things, but you just can't, Nemo. And then he, like, realizes, like, oh, Dory's, oh, I wish I could speak whale, after she, oh, thank you. Like, there's just so many memorable moments and lines. It's just great.
And I'm gonna touch the butt. Like, just from a humorous standpoint, I love that. Gonna touch the butt, and then escape.
Yeah, escape.
Let's see. What does it say? Escape. And then, of course, the seagulls.
Yeah.
Mine.
Well, and there's every one of these side characters is so great. Like, my favorite of the side, because basically you could kind of think of it as like there's little side stories with each character they meet. My favorite is Crush. I love the turtle, like, taking on the jellies, dude. Like, Oh, what is that, like, little blue? She is sub-level, dude. I love that. I love that. Man, this movie's just so good. So I could pick anything. It's so good, but the question is there anything that's not good about it? What would we change? And, I mean, this is one of my favorite Pixar films. Again, this is probably in my top 5. So for me, I can't think of anything I'd change. And I hate to do that for another film, but it's just... Again, I'm not going to force an answer. I'm not going to make something up if I can't truly think of it. And there's nothing in this one that stands out to me that I'm like, oh, yes, that totally holds it back or ruins it. I think it's fantastic.
I would, watching it again, I would say that I feel like the characters in the dentist office, I feel like there's too many. Like, that I feel like it would benefit from being a little more focused.
Yeah, that's fair. Probably the fish, I can't remember what her name is, but the one who, like, has her twin sister. She's like, oh, my sister Flo. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I've never really cared for that character, so, like, I wouldn't cry if she was removed.
That would really be probably about it. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty flawless film for the most part.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I guess wrapping up, closing thoughts, like, I just love this movie. I've loved it ever since I've seen it. Again, it's incredible how much they make all the characters and sequences stand out. The jellyfish sequence, the turtles, the whale. I'll never forget how surprised, like, when they were in that whale, I had no idea how they were going to get out of that. And when he shoots them out of the blowhole, I remember, I was like, oh, I forgot whales have, spouts and blowholes. Like, it was that crazy human feeling of, like, oh, duh! Like, but I was, so joyous for the characters of getting out of there. Like, Gil, the big blowfish, like, Mr. Ray, but he's got a great, the sea, like, just everything, man. This film's just fantastic. Just fantastic.
But would you say it's incredible?
That would be better for our next film. Excellent. So that was Finding Nemo, so we will see you for our next film, which is incredible. As a matter of fact, it's The Incredibles, to be fair. And we will see you then. Take care.